Hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Hosnaim, and I'm a meal trainer. I'm willing to bet that if you're here, you got into this field for the same reason I did, to make a real, tangible difference in the world, right? But here's the million-dollar question. How do we actually prove that we're making that difference? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dive into today. The incredible power of monitoring and evaluation reports, or M&E reports. We're going to learn how they help us turn our good intentions into cold, hard, measurable impact. At the heart of everything we do in the humanitarian and development sector is this one big question. It's the one that can keep us up at night. With all the effort, all the funding, all the passion we pour into our work, how do we know it's working? How do we get beyond just hoping we're helping to actually knowing it? And even more than that, how do we show it to others in a way they'll believe? Well, the answer is right here. It all comes down to clear, credible, and really compelling monitoring and evaluation reports. Now, I know what you might be thinking, paperwork, right? But trust me, these are so much more than that. They're not just some box-ticking exercise. They're the absolute foundation of good, solid programming. This is how we tell the story of our work, but with the evidence to back it all up. All right, so here's our game plan for today. I want to make sure you walk away from this feeling totally confident. First, we'll cover why these reports matter so much. Then, we'll decode what an M&E report actually is. After that, we'll look at the anatomy of a great report, all the key pieces. We'll also clear up the difference between M&E and evaluation reports, a common mix-up. Then, we'll get into the real-world stuff. And finally, I'll give you my top pro tips to get you started on your very first report. Sound good? By the end, you'll have a solid roadmap. Let's get started. Okay, Section 1. Why M&E reports matter. Look, before we even think about the how-to, we have to get a handle on the why. Because honestly, when you truly get why these reports are so crucial, it changes everything. It's what's going to motivate you to create something amazing, not just another document. I like to think of a good M&E report as having 4 superpowers. Seriously. First up, they guide our decision-making. Are we going to scale up a program? Do we need to pivot our strategy? The report gives us the hard evidence to make those calls. Second, they boost accountability. This is how we prove to our donors, our partners, and most importantly, the communities we work with, that we're delivering on our promises. Third, they are amazing learning tools. They show us what's working, what's not, and the big one, why. This is how we get better and better. And finally, they help us engage with our stakeholders, bringing everyone to the table as active partners. Okay, so we're all on the same page about why they're so important. Now let's get into Section 2 and really decode what an M&E report is. So here's the formal definition, but I want you to focus on 2 words here: systematic process. This is so key. An M&E report isn't something you just slap together at the end of a project. No way. It's the result of a continuous, ongoing cycle of collecting data, checking in, and analyzing what's happening right from the very beginning. Think of it less like a final exam and more like a project's journal, tracking everything in a structured way. And I absolutely love this analogy. Think of an M&E report as a bridge. It's perfect, right? On one side of the river, you've got all your program activities, all the hard work, the interventions, everything your team is doing on the ground. And way over on the other side, you've got your stakeholders, your donors, your managers, the community, and they're wondering, so what? What did all that work actually achieve? The M&E report is that bridge. It connects the action to the understanding. It translates what you did into what it means. And that bridge is doing some heavy lifting. It's not just a simple list of activities. Its job is to track our progress against the specific targets we set. It's supposed to measure our results and our effectiveness. It helps us step back and assess the overall program impact, the big picture. And maybe most importantly, it ensures transparency and gives a voice to the beneficiaries, showing the world, through their experiences, how things have actually changed. All right, so we've got the why and the what down. That brings us to Section 3, the how. Let's roll up our sleeves and really look at the anatomy of a great report. We're going to break it down section by section. Think of a good report like a well-told story. It has a clear, logical flow that takes your reader on a journey from beginning to end. Generally, we're looking at 7 key components. Now, don't let that number scare you. Each part just builds on the one before it, creating this really complete, convincing picture. We're going to touch on each of these. First up, the executive summary. Let me be crystal clear. This is the most important part of your entire report. Your project director, a busy donor, they might only have time to read 1 page. This is that page. Your whole mission here is to pack the entire story, your biggest findings, your main conclusions, your top recommendations, into one short, punchy overview. You have to make it count. Next, we have methodology. I call this the trust building section. This is where you pull back the curtain and show everyone exactly how you got your information. What data did you collect? How did you do it? What tools did you use? How did you analyze it all? When you're transparent here, you're telling the reader, hey, these conclusions I'm about to share, they're not just my opinion. They're built on a solid, credible foundation. Okay, now here's something that trips up a lot of new M&E officers, the difference between findings and analysis. It's actually super simple when you think about it this way. Findings are the what. They're just the facts, the raw data. For example, 70% of participants reported a higher income. That's a finding. Analysis is the so what. It's where you step in and explain what that 70% means. Why is it important? What does it tell us about our project's success or its challenges? That's analysis. All right, moving on to Section 4. Let's clear up another really common point of confusion. You hear M&E report and evaluation report thrown around all the time, sometimes as if they're the same thing. They're not. And knowing the difference is pretty important. Here's the easiest way to remember it. An M&E report is like a routine checkup for your project. It's continuous, it happens pretty often, maybe monthly or quarterly. Its main job is to help the project manager make real-time adjustments. On the other hand, an evaluation report is more like a deep, periodic assessment. Think a midterm or end-of-project physical. It's focused on the big picture, like overall impact and sustainability, and it's really about learning for future projects. Okay, let's bring this all down to earth. Section 5, reporting in the real world. Enough with the theory. How does this stuff actually play out day to day when you're on the job? So probably the first question you have is, how often am I actually going to have to write one of these things? And the real answer is, it depends. It totally depends on your audience. For your internal team, you might be doing quick weekly or bi-weekly check-ins just to keep everyone in the loop. For your donors and partners, something more comprehensive, like a monthly or quarterly report, is pretty standard. And then for the big, broad stakeholders, you're probably looking at a super detailed annual or biannual report. The big takeaway here is you have to know your audience and give them what they need. And you know what's really cool? The formats are changing too. We're not just stuck with long narrative Word documents anymore, though those are still around for sure. But now we're seeing things like videos, audio recordings, interactive maps, and these awesome online dashboards that bring the data to life. It's a really exciting time to be an M&E. But whether you're writing a classic report or building a slick dashboard, let's be real. It's not always easy. There are definitely some common roadblocks you're going to run into, and it's way better to know about them up front. Yeah, these are the big ones. First, data quality and just getting the data in the first place can be a huge headache. You know the saying, garbage in, garbage out? It's so true. Then there are resource constraints. Never enough time, money, or staff, right? And honestly, one of the toughest parts is just communicating everything effectively. You can have the most perfect data, but if you can't explain it clearly, it's not going to make a difference. Just knowing these challenges exist is half the battle. Which brings us perfectly to our last section, Section 6. I want to give you some pro tips that you can take away and use on your very next report. This is the practical rubber meets the road advice. Okay, here we go. 5 tips for success. Tip 1, keep it clear and concise. Your readers are busy people. Ditch the jargon. Tip 2, use visuals. A good chart tells a story way faster than a paragraph of text. Tip 3, be honest and transparent. If you had issues with your data, just say so. It makes you more credible. Tip 4, talk to your stakeholders from the beginning, not just when the report is done. Ask them what they need to know. And finally, tip 5, and this might be the most important one, focus on actionable recommendations. Your report shouldn't just be a history lesson. It should be a guide for the future. You know, there's a line in the source material that just sums this all up perfectly. It says that M&E reports illuminate the path toward achieving project objectives. I love that. Illuminate the path. That's what we're doing. We're not just looking backwards. We're lighting the way forward so we can be more efficient and have a bigger impact. So I'm going to leave you with this one final thought. The next time you sit down to write a report, don't just think of it as a task you have to complete. Ask yourself this: how can I use this report to be a real driver for positive change? And that's a wrap for today. I really hope this has cleared things up and given you the confidence you need to tackle your next M&E report head-on. Thanks so much for your time. And hey, if this was useful for you, please go ahead and subscribe for more deep dives into Meal and M&E. Take care.